He held civilly responsible, but now to hear that it's criminal charges, that changes the landscape.
It does change the landscape because if he's found guilty, it could potentially open up other officers in similar situations to similar charges. And how far we want to go with this, that's to be decided. But this did, when I first heard about it, sound like something that should have been decided in the civil court as opposed to a criminal court. But the prosecutor felt they had enough evidence to charge him and convict him, so here we are.
Here we are, and the state has been very zealous in this prosecution and believing that, yes, he should be held criminally responsible because he failed to act, and that as a school safety resource officer, specifically at that school, that's where he worked, that he should be deemed a caregiver criminally responsible for failing to act on that third floor of building 1200. Now, we are still waiting for the verdict to come in. Sonny, how must it feel for Scott Peterson? And you have law enforcement expertise, so you've worked with law enforcement. You know their training, their mindset. How must it feel for them, and him specifically, standing here waiting for this jury to come in with a verdict?
I think he is very concerned. I think other law enforcement officers are very concerned. I am actually also a federally, not just a federal law enforcement instructor formerly with DHS, but I am an FDLE, a Florida Department of Law Enforcement instructor as well. And what I'm thinking right now is when we talk about training, we talk about training in such a broad sense of the word, but we never get down to the nuances of specialties with law enforcement training. And I see him on the move. But one of my concerns is there is a duty to respond and a duty to react, and particularly since Columbine, to run into the line of fire. However, when you think about training that law enforcement professionals receive, some of these trainings are only once a year or maybe twice a year, and this needs to change. This case will change the landscape of what we think about. SWAT has different types of training where they're always going in, and that is very unique to this. Do we need to train SROs in the same manner more regularly to do this based on what we're seeing in the nation today when it comes to school shootings? Yeah,
absolutely. You know, we see there two different parents who are very active in this case, present throughout the school shooter plea and then the death penalty phase of that. Tony Montalto and Max Schachter, very vocal, and have spoken about their interest in seeing convictions in this case. But our own Julia Janae spoke with the National Association of School Resource Officers representative. I'd like to listen to a little bit of what they shared with her.
The concern is starting with it's unprecedented. We haven't seen anything like this. And so I think, you know, however this goes is going to carry a lot of weight, certainly. And could we see it creating a situation where an SRO is even more vulnerable in that position now? Yes. So there certainly are reasonable concerns there to think about in terms of how this plays out.
And I absolutely agree. It is unprecedented, and the effects are going to be long-lasting, whether it's an acquittal, a conviction, or a split verdict. But let me ask you this, Lateef, because one of the things that stood out to me in the testimony, and again, in advance, if I cut you off rudely, it's only because we've got audio in that courtroom. But while we wait for the jury, one of the pieces of evidence were the multiple witnesses that said they were present, including some law enforcement, that could not determine where the shots were being fired. And that's one thing that this defense has contended, that the defendant did not know where the shots were coming from. Lateef, is that enough, in your opinion, to perhaps see an acquittal in this case?
Probably not. And the reason I say that is because we heard previous testimony where the witnesses testified about how loud these shots were and how booming they were and how you could easily decipher where they were coming from. So someone with a trained ear, such as Officer Peterson, most certainly should have been able to tell where they were coming from.
And do you agree with that, Sonny, or have any different opinion?
I actually have a split opinion. Yes, he should have been able to decipher at some point in time. But when you're thinking about a chaotic situation where people may be screaming, where they're running, and he's trying to figure it out between the noise, the background, and the shots, and exactly how to pinpoint that. You know, most people always think they know what they'll do in a crisis until you're actually in one. I have very mixed emotions about this case because I am a parent. I'm also a former school board official as well. So this matters on all sides, and I think to everyone. But this is our criminal justice system playing out.
It is. Let's see if we have audio yet. The judge is on the bench. Everyone has been seated.